California, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Hope everyone's having a great week. We have a lot to get into, such as the Los Angeles Rams, unfortunately going down in the NFC divisional round to the Green Bay Packers. They tried, but Teran Rodriguez was just a bad man. And the Chargers, on the other side of town, pretty much on the neighboring side of town, hires the Rams defensive coordinator Brandon Staley as their new head coach. And as a result of that, the Rams have hired Raheem Morris, the former Atlanta Falcons coach, as their new defensive coordinator. And also, the Anaheim Ducks and the Los Angeles Kings get their first wins of the season. Thank goodness. It only took 3 games of production, 4 games for the Kings. So hopefully there'll be more wins to come from those two teams. And the Lakers had a bit of an uh-oh against the Golden State Warriors on Monday, but they made up for it with a solid victory in their first of their Grammy road trip against the Milwaukee Bucks. 6 more games to go. Can the Lakers stay undefeated on the road as they are currently 8-0? Also, we have college sports aplenty as new college sports are going to be starting their season, such as water polo, men's and women's soccer, even tennis is starting up this weekend. So a lot of college sports going on. And we also have the Lakers and Clippers to talk a little bit more about as well. All that here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your destination for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Happy to Friday to everybody. Hope everyone's having a great start to their weekend, and I hope everyone is having a great week overall. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon or evening, depending on where you're listening from. And without any further delay, let's get started. But first, we have to give a big shout out to the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, and that is Legacy Financial. 2020 was a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're ever in a financial crisis at the moment and you need help, definitely reach out to Andrew and Io. If you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, either give them a call. Also, if you're looking for an opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give them a call at 510-928-2104. That is the phone number for IO. Once again, that phone number is for IO is 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Andrew and Io are just 2 people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_undercut, and then you can follow them on Instagram at sims_uncut. So definitely got to get that little shout out of the way. So thank you to our sponsor, Legacy Financial, for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. All right, now let's get started with the sports. So unfortunately, the Green Bay Packers socked it to the LA Rams, beating them 32-18 in the divisional round. Again, I kind of figured this was going to happen, but the Rams didn't play all that bad. I thought they played pretty decent, if you ask me. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers didn't go crazy, but he did enough to help win them the game. And then also Aaron Jones nearly reached the 100-yard mark in terms of rushing, and then the receiving yards were pretty distributive overall for the Packers. Obviously, they were led by Alan Lazard, who had a touchdown and 96 yards, but Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan, even Marquez Valdez-Scantling got into the mix as well. So And yes, Larry B, the Packers are a good team, but again, the Rams held their own for the most part. They made it interesting in the third quarter and going into the fourth quarter. The problem was that the offense and defense shut down at the incorrect time. So, and then also Aaron Donald was battling a torn rib cartilage. So that is unfortunate. That was unfortunate for him. And the problem was that they didn't get a whole lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And when you're not getting pressure on a quarterback like him, it's just going to make winning a whole lot tough, because the Rams had one of the better defenses, and they did a great job of shutting down Russell Wilson in the divisional round. But unfortunately, against Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, like I said, or as Stephen A. Smith once said, he's a bad man. And unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers definitely came to play, and yeah. And again, when you don't get pressure on the quarterback, it's just going to make it a whole lot tougher to win the game. And I think they didn't even get I don't think they even got a quarterback pressure. I think they got like one quarterback pressure, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the Rams did not get any sacks, while Jared Goff got sacked 4 times for a loss of 26 yards. As that pretty much summed up Jared Goff's day. But again, he didn't play bad. At least the Rams didn't turn the ball over. Like, ball control wasn't really the name of the game. The name of the game was the fact that the Rams just couldn't put points on the board. So, yeah, obviously it's a tough year. But and then after the game, Sean McVay said that they're going to need to evaluate every position on their team, which pretty much hinted at the fact that they're going to be looking at Jared Goff as well. So I personally think that they could be moving forward from Jared Goff, but I don't think so. I think they'll keep Jared Goff for a few more years. As we say hello to Andrew Hagenbaugh in the chat room, and I also got to give a shout out to Larry B that's in the chat room. Thank you, too, for joining me. It's greatly appreciated. So, overall, I think the Rams did a good job this year. For being in second place and being the 6th seed and having most people write them off early in the season. I mean, I even kind of wrote them off. I thought this year was going to be a rebuilding year, and I thought the NFC was going to be a bit stacked in terms of talent, but the Rams really held their own, and they registered some decent signature-ish wins. Obviously, they fell apart toward the end of the season, but they were able to get back together, even when Jared Goff got injured, and especially when John Wolford got injured. So, overall, I think the Rams' future looks bright. As long as they keep Aaron Donald, they're in good shape. And obviously losing their defensive coordinator to another coaching gig kind of hurt them, but they hired someone very wise and learnative to take his place. You'll see. But unfortunately, that is the end for everything that is Southern California football. I've been watching too much volleyball today, but that's the end of Southern California football for the time being. Meaning no anything college football and NFL is pretty much done for this year, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. But I enjoyed seeing all these teams do battle on the gridiron. Like, I was impressed with the Rams this year. The Chargers improved. USC took a step forward, even though they should have won the whole Pac-12. UCLA improved. San Diego State was probably the only disappointment in terms of football this year when it comes to, like, college and the NFL. And I'm sorry, Larry B., but San Diego State really disappointed me. Their offense looks so stagnant against stiffer competition like San Jose State and Colorado and Nevada. I'm sorry, Larry. Like, don't hurt me, man. I know you're a San Diego State fan, but I can't really hold back on the Aztecs. So that's gonna close the book for some football news, and all that is football. There will be some football news. Like, I did actually hear that one of USC's standout players is going to return for next year, but it's not too groundbreaking. But I digress. But it's good. Here's the news from USC football. Isaiah Pola-Mao, a safety for USC, is returning for his senior year, which is really awesome, and I'm glad he's going to be back anchoring the defense. And apparently USC, this will probably be the last bit of football news. Then I'll move on to the off-season stuff. So USC, get this, in terms of statistics on social media, USC is number one in increased social following with 96% of all of the FBS, and they are number one in largest increase in interactions generated with 179%, and then they have 1 million increased in Instagram interactions. I think everyone can guess why USC is so high in most of those social media categories. I'll let y'all take a guess and put it in the chat room. As I'll give y'all a couple seconds. Okay, time's up. I'm not gonna reveal it right away. But if you have the answer to that, I'll put it in the chat room, or just say it to yourself or anything like that. But anyway, in regards to other football news, the Chargers have hired Brandon Staley as their new head coach. He is the former Los Angeles Rams coordinator, as he helped make the Rams' defense stand out-ish this year. And I was a little questioned on why the Chargers hired someone of Brandon Staley's Excalibur, but I really liked him. I really think he brings a good game plan, and it's not just going to be improving the defense, because obviously Brandon Staley was the defensive coordinator for the LA Rams, and he helped make the Rams' defense so stout and tough and powerful this year. But I will also say this, he has the game plan for Justin Herbert. Obviously the Chargers could have hired Brian Dable or Eric Bieniemy, but they decided to go with a defensive-minded coordinator. And me personally, I'm just thankful they didn't hire Jason Garrett. Nothing against Jason Garrett, but I don't think he would have improved the Chargers that much. The Chargers need to improve in all aspects of their game, which they kind of did, as they went from 5-11 last year to 7-9 this year, and they didn't go 0-6 in divisional play. But one of those wins had a little bit of an asterisk, aka the Chiefs. But I digress on that. I think this is a good hire, and I think the Chargers have a lot of upside to them. They just need to boost their offensive line, they need to get everyone back healthy, and they pretty much need to keep Justin Herbert as healthy as possible. Justin Herbert is their future, and he's done an outstanding job. He's broken so many records, and he also was named the Football Writers of America's NFL or Rookie of the Year, as well as the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So big ups to Justin Herbert. And I think he's gotten some other posts. He's also gotten some other Rookie of the Year awards from other football websites. He was also the Fox Offensive Rookie of the Year, the Fox Sports Offensive Rookie of the Year, and then I'm pretty sure he's going to be the Pro Football Focus Rookie of the Year, because the dude, for the most part, has thrown to no-name receivers like Jalen Guyton, Tyron Johnson, Donald Parham, and through the later half of the season, Herbert did not have some of his top receivers like Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams missed some time, and the fact that he was able to go toe-to-toe with quarterbacks such as Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Tom Brady is just astounding. And honestly, not to diss Tyrod Taylor, but without Justin Herbert, I don't think the Chargers would be 7-9. I think they'd be around the 3 or 4 win mark. Not to be mean or anything, but and not to take away credit from the Chargers and all that they did, or for what Anthony Lynn did, but I think the Chargers would have been worse off not going with Justin Herbert. So obviously, I hate what happened with Tyrod Taylor. The poor guy had a chance to start quarterback this year, and then unfortunately, an unfortunate accident happens. which pretty much lost his starting job to Justin Herbert. But now the Chargers know what they are dealing with Justin Herbert. Like, the dude broke so many records, and I've pretty much talked about them in past episodes. So either way, I'm really excited for next year for the Chargers as a Chargers fan. Now, as for the Rams, the last bit of news from the Rams is that they hired a new defensive coordinator. They hired Raheem Morris, the former interim coach of the Atlanta Falcons, which is actually a pretty good hire. I think Raheem Morris really did wonders for the Falcons after Dan Quinn was shown the door, and I think with that much experience, and I think with Raheem Morris not only having coaching experience but having coordinator experience, I think this is a good hire for the Rams. Like, it didn't take them too long, that's for sure. So good stuff for the Rams hiring Raheem Morris. I think that defense is still going to be good for years to come, as long as they keep everyone together, such as Aaron Donald, Jordan Fuller, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, the list goes on and on. Troy Hill, and yeah. So I think the future looks bright in Los Angeles. But my question to everyone is this, to all Los Angeles fans: who wins a playoff game in SoFi first, the Rams or the Chargers? And this was I actually saw this question pop up on my timeline, and it's like, interesting. Who would win a playoff game at SoFi first? Meaning a home playoff game at SoFi. So I think it would probably be the Rams. As much as I want to see the Chargers win a playoff game at SoFi Stadium before the Rams, I just think that the Rams are... I think next year will be a much better year. And honestly, the Rams probably could have won a home playoff game this year. What happened is that they fell apart in the latter part of the season to the Jets and the Seahawks, and that really punched a hole in their strategy, and that pretty much punched a hole in them winning the the NFC West. The Chargers still have to contend with the Kansas City Chiefs, and based on how the Chiefs are doing, or how they did in the regular season from last year, I don't think the Chiefs are going anywhere, especially with how much they've locked up Patrick Mahomes for. The only way that the Chargers are going to win the AFC West is if they trade Patrick Mahomes, which is not going to happen. Or if Chad Henne starts. So that's just my take. I hate to be the bearer of bad news for the Chargers, but I just think the Rams have a better chance of winning a playoff game. So there's that. So I think that's going to close the book for all that is football in terms of Southern California. If any football news does pop up, I will let everyone know in the weeks to come. But right now, it is time to close the book and move on. Now let's go back to the little trivia question of why USC has gotten so many interactions in terms of social media. So once again, USC has the largest percentage increase in social following with 96% of all the FBS. And they also have the largest percentage increase in interactions generated, and that is 179% of all the FBS. And then they have 1 million increase in Instagram interactions. And for those that are wondering how they've gotten so many interactions, or they've gotten a lot of following or anything like that, it's because everyone is probably saying fire Helton or announce the hiring of this new head coach or that new head coach. So that's the reason why USC's football team has had so many Instagram notifications and they've had so many followings. Just because either trolls or they've gotten so many of their diehard fans saying, "Oh, fire Clay Helton and then hire Brian Dable," or something like that. I could already tell you that USC is not going to be getting Urban Meyer as their head coach, so because Meyer just got hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's that. But I just wanted to give everyone the answer to why USC football has had so many interactions. So now let's move on from football for good this time, and let's move on to some hockey, as The LA Kings and the Anaheim Ducks finally got their first win of the season. Thank goodness. It took them a little too long, in my opinion. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You take wins what you can get. The Ducks registered their first win of the season against the Minnesota Wild on Monday, beating the Wild 1-0, handing the Wild their first loss of the season. Jonathan Gibson, the goalie for the Ducks, had 34 saves, which is absolutely amazing, while Nicholas Deslauriers had the only goal of the game, and that was assisted by Kevin Shattenkirk, and it was a pretty defensive battle as the Ducks and the Wild were both deadlocked at 0-0 after 2 quarters, but then the Ducks scored and they didn't allow another goal. So good stuff for Jonathan Gibson. Unfortunately, the Ducks followed that up with a 3-2 loss on Wednesday to the Minnesota Wild, which is fully unfortunate for the Ducks because I would have liked to have seen them beat the Minnesota Wild. It also would have been pretty funny to see the Ducks beat the Minnesota Wild twice while the Kings unfortunately couldn't. Because remember last week that the Kings blew two 3-1 leads against the Minnesota Wild and lost in overtime. I'm sorry that Kings fans have to hear that, but it has to be said. The Kings blew a 3-1 lead against the Minnesota Wild. Luckily, it's a 3-1 lead in a game and not a 3-1 lead in a series. Otherwise, everyone would be dunking on the Kings like there's no tomorrow. Anyway. In terms of goals scored in the second game for the Anaheim Ducks, Nicholas Deslauriers had 1 goal and 1 assist, while Derek Grant had 1 assist for the Ducks as well. And then on defense, Cam Fowler was the one that scored the second goal. So good stuff for the Ducks as they are 1-2-1 on the season. It's still early in the season, so don't count out the Ducks just yet. I just want one team from Southern California, or California in general. There's only 3 California teams, so what am I saying in California in general? I just want either the Ducks or the Kings to actually do good. Like, we haven't had a good California hockey team since the Kings back in the mid-2010s, so there's that. And also, the Ducks are long overdue for a Stanley Cup. I mean, I'm happy that for the Kings, for them winning a Stanley Cup back in 2012 and 2014, but I think the Ducks are a bit overdue for a Stanley Cup. Anyway, so next week, well, starting tonight actually, the Ducks play the Colorado Avalanche at 7 p.m. at Anaheim Stadium, or Arrowhead Pond. I will forever call... By the way, I will call the Honda Center Arrowhead Pond. I do not care what anyone says. I will call the Honda Center or Anaheim Stadium Arrowhead Pond no matter what it is. It is the pond no matter what for us diehard Anaheim Ducks fans. Don't you forget it. Anyway, Sunday the Ducks play the Colorado Avalanche again on Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and again that's going to be at the Honda Center. And then on Tuesday the Ducks play the Arizona Coyotes at Arizona on Tuesday, and then on Thursday the Ducks play the Coyotes again at Arizona at 6 p.m. So there's pretty much your Ducks news right there, your Ducks little recap right there, and again, it will forever be the Arrowhead Pond. I will fight anyone who says otherwise. Anyway, as for the LA Kings, after 4 one-goal losses, the LA Kings finally got a win last night. They beat the Colorado Avalanche 4-2. It was 2-2 after the second period, but it was actually 2-0 to start, and I was fearing that, oh no, Colorado is going to beat the Kings, and the Kings are going to go to 0-4, and it's going to be sad. And then the Kings finally decided to start playing hockey as they scored 2 goals in the second quarter, and then they scored 2 goals in the third quarter, and that was that. And it's better late than never, honestly, because personally, I don't think I would have been able to live with another Kings loss. I mean, I'm not the biggest Kings fan in the world, but I don't hate the Kings. I'm more of the Ducks type, you know? Anyway, the stars of the game in terms of the LA Kings' win was Jonathan Quick. He had 24 saves. He did give up 2 early goals, but I guess that galvanized him. Drew Daughtry had 1 goal last night in the Kings' win. Also, we had Nathan McKinnon, who scored for the Kings last night. And then also, we had Adrian Kempe, who scored for the Kings. And then, rounding up all the scoring, we had Gabriel Velarde, who scored for the Kings as well. And then, defensive man Sean Walker had an assist for the Kings. And then also Andreas Athanasiou. I probably butchered that name, but it's whatever. So yeah, Andreas Athanasiou had an assist for the Kings as the Kings also got an assist from Alex Iafallo. So good stuff for the Kings as they were able to rebound after a tough loss from the Avalanche as they lost 3-2 on Tuesday, which the Avalanche actually scored early and often. They took a 3-0 lead after 3 quarters, or actually after 2 quarters, and then the Kings finally started to play some hockey, and then it was too late. They only got to score 2 goals in the third quarter, and then they lost 3-2, and then everyone was sad-faced because that's how it is. And unfortunately, the Kings just went bye-bye. Anyway, the goal scorers for the Kings that night in the 3-2 loss to the Avalanche was Andreas Athanasiou, who had 1 goal. And also, they had Adrian Kempe score a goal as well. In terms of assists, they got an assist from Mikey Anderson, who had 1 assist. And then Dustin Brown had an assist for the Kings as well. And then as for Jonathan Quick, they didn't start Jonathan Quick. They started Calvin Peterson, who had 24 saves, or actually had 21 saves, for a save percentage of 87.5%. So there's that. So that's pretty much your Kings recap for both games from last week. I guess I might as well recap the other Minnesota Wild game. So once again, the Kings blew a 3-1 lead, and they lost 4-3 in overtime, which was a bummer. Jonathan Quick had 40 saves that game, which is very disappointing. Like, you have to feel for Jonathan Quick. He had such a monster game that night against the Wild, and then his teammates kind of let him down. But goalie is like one of the most toughest positions in any sport, whether it's soccer, hockey, lacrosse, water polo, you name it. It's so tough mentally, and I feel for the goalies that have such monster games and then they fall up a little short because of a golden goal or a shootout or whatnot. So anyway, Gabriel Velarde, Andreas Athanasiou, and Blake Lizotte each scored for the Kings, while Jeff Carter chipped in 2 assists, and Curtis McDaniel as well as Austin Wagner both chipped in an assist as well. So there's wait. The Kings had 4 assists, but they scored 3 goals. That makes no sense. One of those goals must have been an own goal. But anyway, that's pretty much your Kings recap. The Kings continue play as they play the St. Louis Blues tomorrow at St. Louis. And then they also play the St. Louis Blues on Sunday as well. So that's a back-to-back affair against the St. Louis Blues. And then Tuesday, the Kings continue their little road trip as they play at Minnesota. Hopefully the Kings, for their sake, have a better experience against the Minnesota Wild, And then next Thursday, the Kings play at Minnesota again. Both of those games will start at 5 p.m., as well as the games on Sunday and Saturday. So definitely do check out those Kings games. It's sure to be a fun time, and I think the Kings and the Ducks still have plenty of season to go, and I don't think they're going anywhere, in my opinion. I think they've still got a long way to go. So that's going to be that for the NHL portion of the show. Let's go to some MLS soccer. So last week I talked about the NWSL draft. This time I'm going to talk about the MLS Super Draft. So I actually didn't brush up on this. I saw bits of the draft. I saw bits of the MLS Super Draft, but I'll go down the picks as I go along. So Daniel Trejo. So the first pick for LAFC, which was their first round pick, their pick was 14th overall, was Daniel Trejo out of Cal State Northridge. And that is big time news right there, because not only is Daniel Trejo going to LAFC, but he is a Southern California product, having played at Cal State Northridge. That right there deserves a round of applause. So yeah, that's big news right there. So welcome to LAFC, Danny Trejo. I know all of us are all Galaxy fans, but we can appreciate greatness. So anyway, the LA Galaxy actually acquired the pick from Portland via a trade. So the Galaxy acquired Portland's number 16 overall pick, and they got Josh Drack from Denver, which is pretty cool. So he's kind of a local boy, which is nice. So they also got another player from Denver in the second round, as they drafted Preston Jude, which I guess is cool. And then Andrew, I don't know if you're still in the chat room, but LAFC drafted 41st overall CC Uche from Ohio State. I'm sorry. Did I say Ohio State? I meant the Ohio State. So that's some good stuff right there. Gotta give a shout out to Ohio State. Gotta give a shout out to my boy Andrew Hagenbaugh, who did an outstanding job with his show, The State of Ohio Sports. He always does a great job with that show and the Soccer Scoreboard Show. If you want more in-depth soccer analysis, definitely do check out the Soccer Scoreboard Show every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And also check out the State of Ohio Sports every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. He comes on 2 hours before the show. So he does a great job with both of his shows, and he's a really cool guy, and definitely check him out. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, he's awesome. He knows his soccer. He sure as heck can talk more soccer than I could. But seriously, great job, Andrew, today. Anyway, so in the third round, the Los Angeles Galaxy decided to pass, which I only wish they were passing gas. And I'm kidding. But yeah, LA Galaxy just passed. As for LAFC, they drafted Alvaro Quezada from UC Irvine, or Irvine, California. Yet another SoCal product. I don't think he's from UC Irvine, but it says he's from California, Irvine, or Irvine, California. So that deserves another round of applause. Okay, it's not that impressive. I mean, what has LAFC won? I'm sorry, LAFC fans, but I gotta bring it up. So that's pretty much the entire MLS Super Draft. I guess there was only 3 rounds. I haven't really had experience covering an MLS Super Draft, but I did see that popped up on my timeline, and it's like, ooh, I actually gotta talk about this. And it's only fair because last week I talked about the NWSL draft, even though California doesn't have a NWSL team, it's only fair to talk about the other draft that happened, which they had Southern California products. And looking at, and yeah, I'll pretty much leave it at that. If I do see any like Southern California products next week, I'll definitely bring that up, because it's always cool when a Southern California product gets drafted, because they're doing the state of California proud, which is awesome. So that's pretty much going to be the gist of it in terms of LAFC and the LA Galaxy. Next week, I will talk about the Southern California products that got selected in the MLS draft. And we're going to give love to everybody, not just LAFC and the LA Galaxy. So, in other words, if Chicago drafted Christian Pinzon from Cal State Fullerton, or Vancouver drafted Eric Ilowski or Ioski from UCLA, I'd pretty much give him the love right there. So there's that. Again, if you want more in-depth soccer analysis, definitely do check out the Soccer Scoreboard Show this Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You won't be disappointed, and honestly, Andrew Hagenbaugh does a great job with his show. So there's that. So that's going to be it for the MLS portion of the show. Now let's jump into the NBA portion of the show. Okay, so now this is the one where everyone, or Lakers fans, have been wanting me to talk about. So the Lakers are officially on their Grammy road trip, but they actually had 2 home games prior to the Grammy road trip. So last Friday they played the New Orleans Pelicans, and despite trailing by 15, the Lakers beat the Pelicans by 17, which is quite amazing. I didn't think the Lakers would pull off a win like that, which is quite amazing. So yeah, they won 112-95. That actually was their 5th straight win, which was quite impressive. So I'm actually impressed by the fact that they were able to come back from 15 down to win by 17. I guess it helps when you have LeBron, AD, and everyone else going all in. So it just goes to show you that the AD trade for Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, the number 4 pick, was it? Or was it the number 5 pick? I think it was the 4th pick or 3rd pick. Either way, it was top 5. The top 5 pick was indeed worth it for Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis helped the Lakers win a championship. So, yeah. So there's that win. Unfortunately, and this is a big unfortunately, earlier this week, the Lakers suffered a 115-113 loss to the Golden State Warriors. The sad part about it is, remember how the Lakers were down 15 and managed to win by 17? The Lakers were actually up by 19 against the Golden State Warriors, and they were doing an amazing job shutting down Steph Curry. Steph Curry did not look like himself. Unfortunately, every other Warriors player was shooting the ball well, and the Lakers just suddenly took their foot off the gas and allowed the Warriors to get back in it. Late in the 3rd quarter, the Lakers managed to lead by 11, or was it 12? I think it was 12. They led by 12 going into the 4th quarter, and then the Warriors outscored the Lakers 34-21 in the 4th quarter. Absolutely disappointing, if you ask me. Like, Steph Curry at his worst, and the Warriors still managed to win. Like, the Lakers definitely deserve to lose that game. I was sick, honestly. This is actually a perfect segue to talk about how iSports Radio has an amazing Northern California sports show, as it's the NorCal Faithful Sports Show hosted by Big Dan, and that comes on at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And I promise you, Danny will not be dunking on the Lakers too much. Like obviously he was impressed with the fact that the Warriors came back and won, but he didn't dunk on the Lakers too much, because in hindsight, the Warriors lost last night. But I digress. But definitely do check out the NorCal Faithful Sports Show with Big Dan. He does an amazing job, and he comes on right after Set Point, which is my other show. But I digress on that as well. Anyway, so last night the Lakers did pull off an impressive victory. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks to start their Grammy road trip 113-106. The Lakers are currently 8-0 on the road, which is absolutely amazing. I didn't think they'd be 8-0 in their first 8 games. Like, it's funny because all the Lakers' losses have come at Staples Center, and some of their losses were tough losses, some of their losses were ugly, but overall the Lakers are still having a good year. I don't think Lakers fans should be overly concerned considering it's only January and they shouldn't be concerned until like the latter part of the season, such as March. And I guess this season's only going to March because it's only a 72 game season. It's not a 82 game season. So, but I'm not concerned about the Lakers' loss. I'm just mad at the fact that how the Lakers lost to the Warriors on Monday. It's like, how do you lead by 19? You go back up by double digits, and you hold their best player to a horrible shooting night, and then you lose. Just why, man? Like, oh well. Again, you'd rather lose in the regular season than the postseason, so that's just my little spiel right there. So, the Lakers continue their Grammy road trip, and it's going to be a big one, as the Lakers from now until the next time we go live have a 4-game span as they face the Chicago Bulls at the United Center on Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then on Monday, the Lakers play the Cleveland Cavaliers at Cleveland on Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Then on Wednesday, the Lakers take on the Philadelphia 76ers at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. That's going to be a great game right there. And then on Thursday, the Lakers take on the lowly Detroit Pistons at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This week is also going to be tough for the Lakers, not only because they have so many games, but this upcoming Tuesday is going to be really tough for them, as this upcoming Tuesday is actually the 1-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's passing, and Gianna and the other people in that tragic helicopter crash in Calabasas. But it's going to be tough for the Lakers players, just because it's been 1 year already. I'm obviously happy the Lakers won the NBA championship, but it's obviously never going to get easier. Not for Vanessa Bryant, not for Lakers fans, not for past Lakers players, not for past Lakers coaches, not for the current Lakers team, not for anyone. So I think this upcoming week is going to be an emotional week, and it's also going to be a busy week. That's because the Lakers have 3 games in 4 nights, and that 4th night is basically a night off where it's pretty much going to be a day of reflection and how Kobe tragically passed away. And for me, it's never easy. Like, I also knew someone else on that tragic helicopter crash, being John Altobelli, who is the head baseball coach of Orange Coast College, and I knew him quite well. And when I went to drop off some stuff at his memorial at the Wendell Pickens Field at OCC, I just suddenly felt an urge to cry, but I had to hold my emotions in. Obviously I could have cried, but it's just unfortunate. Like, it just suddenly, my emotions just hit me right in the face. It's like, dang, I can't believe he's gone. And I just was teary-eyed. I was emotional. Like, I just had to just drop off my stuff and just walk away and just gather myself and just say he's sadly gone. And I know they're looking down on us and they're still proud, and hopefully for OCC's sake that we'll be able to get some games in for the Pirates. And also, but I'm actually going off topic here, but I definitely will say this. It's never easy when someone you know, love, or idolize tragically passes. It's just awful. And especially for the Lakers players. And players like LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, heck, even players like J.R. Smith probably have had a great relationship with Kobe. So 1 year anniversary of Kobe's passing, it's just not going to get any easier. So so January 26th is going to be a tough day for everybody, especially me, because I not only knew Kobe, well, I didn't personally know Kobe. I was a fan of Kobe, but not only because of Kobe, but because of the passing of John Altobelli. So it sucks, but time goes on, and they would want us to keep moving on with our lives. So it's just my little take, but that's just how it is. So anyway, on to the Clippers now. So the Clippers had themselves a good week last week, as they won 3 games last week. They weren't really all that great, but it is what it is. The Clippers dominated in all 3 of their games from now until last week, as last Friday, the Clippers beat the Kings 138-100. They really let the Kings have it. Yeesh. And then last Sunday, the Clippers beat the Pacers 129-96. Yet another 30-point loss. And then this past Wednesday, the Clippers beat the Kings 115-96. So in other words, the Clippers are back to smacking everybody around. It's just all about if they could continue to smack teams around in the postseason. That's the million-dollar question. So anyway, the Clippers have, from now until next Friday, 5 games, as the Clippers play the Oklahoma City Thunder twice, as they play the Thunder tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and they play the Thunder on Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And then the Clippers kind of go on their little bit of a Grammy road trip as well, as the Clippers open up their road trip on Tuesday against the Atlanta Hawks. I think that's going to be a really good game right there. I think that's going to be a sneaky good game, just because the Hawks have somewhat improved. And then we also get to see Onyeka Okongwu, the former USC standout from last year, or as many people call him, Big O, who was also on the Chino Hills boys basketball team. So there's some trivia for you. And then this upcoming Thursday, or next Thursday, the Clippers play the Miami Heat. It's basically going to be the Clippers versus last year's finalist. And then next Friday, the Clippers play the Orlando Magic. So they'll be staying in Florida for the next 2 days, next Thursday and Friday. I guess it's also worth mentioning that the following Sunday, the Clippers play at the New York Knicks, and then the following Tuesday, the Clippers play at the Brooklyn Nets, and then they also play at the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that's pretty much going to be their semi-Grammy trip. Their Grammy trip is 6 games long. So the Clippers won't be back at Staples Center until Friday, February 5th, where they'll play the Boston Celtics, which I imagine that's going to be a really good game as well. One of the best teams in the East versus one of the best teams in the West. I wonder who Laker fans are going to root for in that game. I digress on that, though. So that's pretty much going to be it for the Lakers and Clippers. Before I go to a commercial break, let's actually check the Lakers and Clippers in the standings. So the Lakers are still the league's best team. They are 12-4 as they tower above the Western Conference and the entire NBA overall. In third place is the Los Angeles Clippers. They're not too far behind the Lakers, as they're 11-4, and if the Clippers somehow win tonight, which it could happen, it could not, the Clippers will be the league's best team, and unfortunately for Lakers fans, they will be on top of the NBA, and then we'll get to see every NBA fan, not NBA fan, all these so-called Clippers fans flexing their muscles saying, oh, the Clippers are the best team in the NBA, Clippers in 4, Flex your muscles when you actually win a frickin' ring. I'm just saying. So, for now, the Lakers are still the best team in the NBA. The Clippers are still a half a game back of them. They're actually tied with the Utah Jazz for the second best record in the NBA, but that's only if the Clippers lose tonight. If the Clippers win tonight, then they'll be 12-4 along with the Lakers, and then they'll be and then they'll pretty much be the same record as the Lakers, and then we'll get to see Clippers fans just flexing their muscles. So there's that. So that's going to be it for the NBA. We're actually going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we're actually going to be talking some college sports and dedicating the last portion of the show to college sports. And then we'll see if I can talk a little bit more about the Lakers and the Clippers and some more, because we still have an hour before our next show. So we'll see what happens. So you're listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show right here on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Callum Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
And welcome back to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. You can definitely check out Let's Whine About Sports and 3 and Out on all of our platforms, such as Spreaker, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, YouTube, you name it. And you can also check out 3 and Out on YouTube as well, as there's going to be primetime face-offs tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and then there's also going to be another primetime face-off following that one at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time. So definitely check out 3 and Out, and also check out Let's Wine About Sports. Thanks to Mike, I am pretty much into wine tasting, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but either way, I guess you could say it's not all that bad. So wine is pretty good for you, honestly. So yeah. So anyway, back to the SoCal action. We have a lot of college sports making their debut, such as men's water polo starts tomorrow. I'm not so sure about women's water polo, but I'm sure they'll be starting up pretty soon. We've got women's and men's tennis starting tomorrow. That's that's up there. Men's and women's soccer will be starting tomorrow as well. We also got women's volleyball starting tonight. Hey, Set Point, no. We don't need you to come on tonight. It's not Tuesday. I mean, yeah, we've got all sorts of college sports going on tonight. So, yeah, including volleyball. Set Point, what have I told you? Anyway, Set Point is trying to get loose and want to be free and have me talk some volleyball, but the volleyball is going to be saved for Tuesday. So I'll be talking more about college water polo, college tennis, college soccer, and all the other college sports as we get into it later on in the week. So definitely do stay tuned for that. And it may drag the show out a little bit longer, but it is what it is. So, anyway, as for the college basketball, which is going on right now, here's some scores that's going on. As we have UC Riverside up on Cal State Bakersfield 45-43, with only 46 seconds to go in the second half. So it's a low-scoring game, so nice defense right there. Then we have UC Irvine pounding Cal Poly 66-46, which is no real surprise. Then we have Cal State Fullerton on top of Hawaii at halftime, 42-34, and that's pretty much all of the Southern California men's basketball scores going on. Let's try to go conference to conference here. So let's go, instead of just going all the Southern California scores at once, let's just go conference to conference in terms of the Southern California scores, starting with the Pac-12. So this past week, we had UCLA, number 24 ranked UCLA, beating Cal 61-57. Close game right there, as Cal gave it everything they had against the Bruins, but UCLA just pulled it off in the end. UCLA is currently 8-0 in conference play, but I'll get into that a little bit later in terms of the standings. But UCLA is just looking really good, man. As for USC and Stanford, the USC-Stanford game actually got postponed due to a positive test in the USC men's program. However, that positive actually turned out to be a false positive. So no one in the USC men's basketball program has COVID-19, which is really good because no one should be getting COVID at this point of what's going on. Like, no, we don't want anyone to get COVID, no matter who it is. So I'm glad that was just a false positive, and I'm glad everyone is okay at USC men's basketball. And USC and Stanford are gonna do all that they can to reschedule the game between those two teams. There were actually rumbles or suggestions saying that USC and Stanford should play tonight and they should push Cal USC to Sunday. I wouldn't mind that, but it all depends on the Pac-12 Sunday guidelines. Either way, we're not going to see Stanford and USC being played for a little while longer. So, anyway, on Wednesday... Oh, wait, no, that's not Southern California. So, we actually had a couple games regarding USC and UCLA on Tuesday. UCLA and Oregon was postponed, unfortunately. But we had USC playing Oregon State, and unfortunately, Oregon State emerged victorious over USC, winning 58-56. I'm not kidding you. Oregon State beat USC 58-56. I'm just going to say it tell it like it is. That was a horrible, 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 horrible loss for USC. USC needs all of the Pac-12 wins to stay in striking range of UCLA, and they go on to lose that. It seems like it's every year USC loses a game where they should probably blow out the opponent. Last year it was against Santa Clara where they lost in double overtime. This year it's to Oregon State, and it was almost this year to UC Riverside or Cal Baptist, but I guess Oregon State decided to take that role from underneath the recipient's noses. Either way, it was just a bad loss for USC. And again, USC ill-advised needs a loss. can ill afford a loss in the Pac-12, because now they've lost twice, and they're further behind the 8 ball in terms of trying to catch up to UCLA, and they're going to need a lot of help, and USC is going to pretty much need to run the table going forward. Otherwise, they are all but sunk, I tell you. That's just disappointing there, and Andy Enfield and his team should know better. Like, they were doing so well. They even swept the Arizona schools at Arizona. But unfortunately, USC just couldn't beat Oregon State in Corvallis. Just disgusting, man. Oh, come on, USC. Anyway, last Saturday we had USC beating Washington State 85-77, while UCLA beat Washington 81-76. UCLA has really struggled in their past 2 games. They barely squeaked by Cal, and they barely squeaked by last place Washington. I know Washington is actually playing better, but I don't know. I think UCLA might be missing. I forget his name, but I think his name's like Chris Jones or something. But either way, UCLA has actually been impressive as of late with getting contributors from Jules Bernard and Jaime Jaquez Jr. So there's that right there. But Jules Bernard is the local product, so there's that. So that's pretty much the games for this past week. In other words, from now until last week. So the upcoming games for USC and for UCLA men's hoops, we have UCLA playing Stanford tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific time, while USC plays Cal at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Both games are on Saturday, and there's that right there. I can see USC rescheduling their game against Stanford next Tuesday, if possible, but we'll see how it goes. As for games next week, next Thursday we have USC playing Oregon State at Galen Center. Now, USC really needs to win that game. USC has to have redemption. If they lose again to Oregon State, I will be disappointed. I may need to go on a rant on them next week. I will unleash on USC next week. I will hold nothing back on the Trojans. Anyway, as for UCLA next week, from now until next week, UCLA only has 1 game, and they play number 21 Oregon at Pauley Pavilion. I promise you all, I will try to call that game for USRN. I really want to call. I was actually supposed to be their guy that calls Pac-12 games this year when it comes to men's basketball, but I unfortunately haven't been able to do that because of COVID and because of certain issues involving the program and all the games being televised and whatnot and all that stuff. So I hope this is the week that I get to call a game for USRN, but it all remains to be seen, so we'll see how it goes. But I promise you, I should be able to call that game by this week, and if not, then I will be disappointing. I will have disappointed everyone. So anyway, on to the standings. So UCLA is currently in first place in the Pac-12 conference at 8-0. They're also 12-2 overall. USC isn't too far behind them, as they're 5-2 overall, 5-2 in conference, 11-3 overall, which is pretty good. Oregon is in second place at 4-1. We haven't seen a whole lot of Oregon as of late. A lot of their games have been postponed. We haven't seen them play since they faced off against Utah. So 3 of their games have been postponed, and this week they play Oregon State. So that could be a potential trap game for Oregon, as Oregon's next game after that is against UCLA. So there's that. And like I said, UCLA is 12-2, while USC is 11-3. USC should probably be 13-1 at this point, but again, they don't really know the terms any given day or trap game or adjustment. Either way, USC has a lot of work to do in terms of adjusting and in terms of men's hoops. So now let's go over to all the current games happening right now on the women's side. So San Diego State Air Force is underway, and I guess they're the only game, or no, they're the only game that's going on right now because every other game is ended. Cal Baptist stays undefeated on the women's side, beating Chicago State 93-52. UC Davis beat UC San Diego 80-62. UC Irvine beat Cal Poly 63-52, and UC Riverside beat Cal State Bakersfield 64-56. Those were the scores that happened today. Let's go to the Pac-12 scores that happened this past week, as we have later on today, we have UCLA at number 6 UCLA at number 5 Stanford in women's hoops. That's going to be a really good game. That could decide a whole lot because this past weekend we had Stanford losing to Colorado in overtime. That was huge right there, and that could pretty much open the door for the Bruins. And who knows, maybe the Bruins can knock off the Cardinal, and maybe they could possibly take control of the Pac-12. We'll see. So, USC's game against Cal has been postponed, which really sucks. So, now, let's go to the past games. There were no Pac-12 women's basketball games or involving USC or UCLA on Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. But there were some games on Saturday. Or, I'm sorry, not on Saturday, Sunday. We had UCLA barely edging Washington State in overtime, 68-66. That was the same night that Colorado upset number 1 Stanford. It was also the night that USC played, but get this, everybody, get this. USC played, but they didn't play any Pac-12 opponents. Instead, they played UC Riverside from the Big West Conference. And we all know UC Riverside doesn't really have the greatest program in the world, as they lost to Long Beach State and a few others. But get this, everybody, get this. UC Riverside beat USC 54-52. I'm not kidding you. UC Riverside beat USC 54-52. It seems like the women's basketball team decided to imitate USC's men's basketball team and go down the route of playing a close game against UC Riverside, but instead of winning in close fashion or winning in overtime, USC women's basketball decided to lose in close fashion. Recipe for disaster. Gosh dang it, USC. Do I need to call Will Ferrell? No, that is not funny, but I digress. Absolutely disgusting. I can't believe USC would lose to a team like that. Nothing against UC Riverside, but it's just bad, man. Like, you can't lose to teams like that. Like, the Pac-12 takes pride in being a Power 5 conference. I'm just kidding, everybody. You thought I had you all. But the Pac-12 has been a complete mess this year, so gosh dang it, man. USC, you're just adding fuel to USC women's hoops. You are just adding fuel to the fire when it comes to the Pac-12 being a joke. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. So there's that right there. So as for the rest of the Pac-12 women's basketball games involving Stanford and USC, UCLA at Cal has been postponed, while USC has to travel to Stanford this Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. It's going to be tough to win at Stanford, so USC better be ready for a long game. And hopefully they could at least give them some sort of challenge. So next week we have USC playing Arizona at home, and then we also have number 6 UCLA playing Arizona State, which is going to be really cool, and I can't wait. I hope USC can pull off another upset. They beat Washington State, which is pretty good, but now they have to make up for lost time after losing to UC Riverside. I still can't believe that. Like, how do you let that happen? Anyway, so as for the Pac-12 standings, so UCLA is not too far behind from Stanford. They're actually they're 6-2, but that's only because some of their games have been postponed. Stanford is still in first place at 8-1, while Arizona is 9-2. UCLA is 6-2. USC is currently 4-5 in the Pac-12 conference. UCLA is 8-2 overall, and then USC is 6-6 overall. At least they're 500 for the time being. Notice the words "for the time being" because when they face Stanford, it's not going to be pretty, in my opinion. But I digress. Like, you never know. Any given week, any given Sunday, even though that only applies for football. So there's the Pac-12 women's scores right there, and there's the Pac-12 recap right there and then. Now let's jump on over to the Big West Conference. So before I get into the Big West Conference scores for tonight, I actually do need to give a little update on Long Beach State's men's and women's basketball programs. So both teams were actually pretty much shut down this past week. Like last week, the two teams had games, and Long Beach State played UC Irvine in a conference play, and then also Long Beach State women's basketball played UC Irvine, while Long Beach State men's basketball played at Cal State Northridge. And then unfortunately the games got postponed because there was a possible COVID outbreak, but it turns out that was another other false positive. So that really sucked because that was pretty much a scare for everyone. It was a scare for the program, for the coaches, for the whole school. Like, it was scary. So I hate these whole Insta false positive things. Like, it really burns my waffles, honestly. So UCLA I'm sorry, why did I say UCLA? Long Beach State have byes this week in terms of the Big West Conference, but actually Long Beach State has a game this week. They have a game tomorrow at Cal Baptist, and it's going to be some fun times, because that's my school versus Larry's school. God, I wish we could have a prime-time face-off in terms of college men's basketball, but there's no such thing as that. Besides, Larry's booked for this weekend when it comes to prime-time face-offs in terms of 3 and Out, which I highly recommend you check out tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and then 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time as well. So you can catch them on YouTube and StreamYard and whatnot. So definitely do check it out. I highly recommend it. So anyway, now let's go to the Big West scores for tonight. So the Big West men's basketball scores for tonight. We have Cal State Bakersfield beating UC Riverside. Quite the comeback for them as they beat them 47-45. UC Santa Barbara beat Cal State Northridge 105-58. Yeesh. UC San Diego got its first ever Division I win against UC Davis. That right there deserves an applause. So let's hit the applause button for them. So yeah, UC San Diego did pick up its first Division I victory against a Division I opponent, and I'm glad it was against UC Davis. So good job, UC San Diego. We are all very proud of you. And UC Irvine beat Cal Poly 68-49. So that's some good stuff there. So we didn't have any Big West Conference games on Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday, but we had Cal State Fullerton beating Cal State Northridge 85-77. Last Saturday we had UC Riverside beating Cal Poly 70-53. UC Santa Barbara trouncing UC San Diego 84-53. Cal State Northridge edging Cal State Fullerton 86-85. Cal State Bakersfield beating Hawaii 83-72. And then Cal State Fullerton UC Davis was canceled along with Cal State Northridge and Long Beach State. And then last Friday we had UC Riverside beating Cal Poly 86-51. We had UC Santa Barbara beating UC San Diego 69-52. We had Cal State Bakersfield beating Hawaii 60-55. And we also had Cal State Fullerton and UC Davis canceled, as well as Cal State Northridge and Long Beach State canceled from last week. So, like I said, this Saturday we have a non-conference game between Long Beach State and Cal Baptist. That's going to be a fun game. Like, it's going to be bragging rights between Larry and I. Like, between his teams and my teams, I know the Chargers and Raiders split their series. I forget what other teams Larry and I have... and then also Larry and I split our series in fantasy football. So basically Long Beach State, Cal Baptist in men's basketball is going to be our tiebreaker to see which one of us is going to get the bragging rights. I don't know if we're going to really accept that, but this will probably be the first thing I talk about next week. I'll probably put it in reverse order. So yeah, Long Beach State, Cal Baptist face each other at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Cal Baptist is a 3-point favorite, so that's concerning for Long Beach State. Oh no. Anyway, so as for the actual Big West Conference games, we have UC Davis at UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara at Cal State Northridge, Cal State Bakersfield at UC Riverside, Cal Poly at UC Irvine, and Hawaii at Cal State Fullerton. So those are your Big West Conference games. There will not be any Big West Conference games involving Big West Conference teams until next Friday. Next Friday we will have UC Santa Barbara at UC Davis. We will have UC San Diego at Long Beach State. We will have Cal State Fullerton at Cal State Bakersfield. We will have UC Irvine at Hawaii. And we will have Cal State Northridge at Cal Poly for a 2-game series on back-to-back nights for next week. So there's that right there. And we will be going over the Big West Conference standings. So since most of these teams are from Southern California, I might as well just save the entire conference. So first place in the Big West Conference is UC Irvine. They are 3-0 in conference play. Cal State Bakersfield is 6-1. UC Santa Barbara is 5-2. UC Riverside is 3-2. Long Beach State is 2-2. Cal State Northridge is 1-2. Cal State Fullerton is 2-4. Hawaii is 1-3. UC San Diego is 1-2, UC Davis is 0-1, and Cal Poly is 0-5. In terms of overall records, UC Irvine is 7-4, Cal State Bakersfield is 10-4, UC Santa Barbara is 9-3, UC Riverside is 6-4, Long Beach State is 3-4, Cal State Northridge is 5-5, Cal State Fullerton is 3-4, Hawaii is 3-3, UC San Diego is 3-3, UC Davis is 2-3, and Cal Poly is kind of bringing up the rear at 2-9. I hope they can get a Big West Conference win, but that's just me. So that's it for the Big West Conference men's basketball scores and recaps. So now let's go over to the women's side of things and recap the Big West Conference scores. So, like I said, Long Beach State's women's basketball team is A-OK. This week they're on bye, but then next week they're going to come back. They're right back at it. Their COVID outbreak was just a false positive, so I'm glad they're all safe. So as for the Big West Conference women's basketball scores, we had UC Davis beating UC San Diego 80-62, UC Irvine beating Cal Poly 63-52, and UC Riverside beating Cal State Bakersfield 64-56. Cal State Fullerton and Hawaii Cal State Fullerton and Hawaii are slated for 8:59 p.m. Later on tonight. That's Pacific time. In Hawaii time, that's 11:50. That's actually 5:59. And then if you're watching on the East Coast, then I feel bad for you. I'm sorry. I had to say that. I don't mean any offense, East Coasters. And then also Cal State Northridge and UC Santa Barbara have been canceled. So going back all the way back to Sunday, like I said, UC Riverside beat USC 54-52. Huge win right there for UC Riverside. Let's give them the applause button. Okay, that's not overly a big deal because USC doesn't really have the best women's program. Nothing against them. I don't mean to offend anyone, but they're just not the greatest. They're not as good as they have been in the past, but I guess it would also be good for Long Beach State's women's basketball team, which lost to USC, and if it comes down to it, then who knows, maybe Long Beach State actually makes the NCAA tournament, whether they win the Big West Conference or not, so we'll see. So anyway, last Saturday, we had Cal State Fullerton taking on Concordia of Irvine and winning 69-51. We had UC San Diego edging UC Santa Barbara 73-71. Big win right there for the Tritons. I think that's their second Division I win, which is dang impressive. And then Cal State Bakersfield beat Hawaii 51-43. Cal Poly, UC Riverside, and Long Beach State, Cal State Northridge was canceled, even though Long Beach State, UC Irvine was slated to take the place of it. But either way, Long Beach State postponed or canceled its games against UC Irvine, which was recently newly scheduled. Anyway, as for last Friday's games, there was only one Big West Conference game that happened last Friday, and that was Cal State Bakersfield beating Hawaii 64-57. Cal Poly, UC Riverside, Long Beach State, Cal State Northridge, UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, and UC Davis, Cal State Fulton were all canceled, unfortunately. And like I said, Long Beach State actually swapped its opponents as they were going to play UC Irvine, but then that game got canceled because of the false COVID positive at the Long Beach State school and whatnot, and yeah. So anyway, as for the Big West Conference women's basketball standings, we have Long Beach State in first place at 6-0, UC Irvine at 3-0, UC Davis at 1-0, UC San Diego at 2-2, Cal State Bakersfield at 2-3, UC Santa Barbara at 2-3, Cal Poly at 1-2, UC Riverside at 1-2. Cal State Northridge has yet to play a Big West Conference game. Hawaii is at 0-2, and Cal State Fullerton is at 0-4. In terms of overall standings, we have Long Beach State at 7-1, UC Irvine at 6-5, UC Davis at 2-0, UC San Diego at 2-2, Cal State Bakersfield at 4-5, UC Santa Barbara at 2-7, Cal Poly at 5-4, UC Riverside at 4-5. Cal State Northridge has yet to play a game. Hawaii at 0-2, and Cal State Fullerton is 1-7 on the overall year. So that's the Big West Conference women's basketball scores. As for the Mountain West Conference in terms of women's basketball, I gotta get over this. The Mountain West Conference, we had San Diego State currently trailing Air Force 8-4. What? Air Force scored 8 points while San Diego State scored 4 points. I think I should just end it right here. I'm kidding. But, San Diego State is, that's an interesting score. 8-4 between Air Force and San Diego State. Cool. Anyway, Utah State and San Diego State got canceled from last week. And last week, San Diego State beat Utah State 68-60. So that's good stuff for the San Diego State women's basketball team, as the Aztecs are 4-7 overall, and in terms of conference play, San Diego State is 2-3. They are still far behind Colorado State and New Mexico and Fresno State and Boise State and Wyoming, and the list goes on and on. So it's been a tough year for San Diego State women's basketball, but at least they're still chugging along. So now let's go to the Mountain West Conference in terms of men's basketball. Oy vey. We all thought San Diego State's women's basketball team had a pretty interesting week. Well, let's talk about San Diego State. So San Diego State is playing Air Force right now. They're up 5-3 in the first half. Last week was an atrocious week for the Aztecs, as they lost to Utah State 64-59 on last Saturday, and then they lost to Utah State again last Thursday 57-45. Good gracious! Like, San Diego State's not only struggling in football, but they're struggling in basketball too. Like, come on, Aztecs. Do I have to get Larry B over there to fire you all up? I don't think anyone wants to answer that question. So anyway, San Diego State is 3-3 in conference play. They are behind Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, and Nevada. San Diego State is also 9-4. Remember when San Diego State was ranked and they had beaten UCLA, and everyone was laughing at UCLA and everyone was praising San Diego State? And by everyone, I mean a certain somebody who likes San Diego State and not UCLA. I'm not going to name names, but I digress. Oh, how the tables have turned. Poor San Diego State. We don't really feel all that bad for them. So that's pretty much that for San Diego State. They're 9-4. They're still having an okay year, but I don't know if they'll be making the NCAA tournament. We'll see, though. So now let's wrap it up in terms of men's and women's basketball with the West Coast Conference. So there are no West Coast Conference games tonight. There was some West Coast Conference men's basketball games involving SoCal teams. Loyola Marymount lost to St. Mary's 65-61. Pepperdine trounced Pacific 85-68. Absolutely amazing right there. So those were those scores. On Tuesday we had a really good game between San Diego and Loyola Marymount. Loyola Marymount emerged victorious in overtime, winning 72-69. It was actually San Diego's first game since God knows when. They had a COVID. Actually, no, it was their first game since Sunday. But I'll get into that game momentarily. I'll get into that previous game momentarily. So there were no games on Monday. San Diego actually returned to the court this past Sunday. They lost to Santa Clara 69-63. As again, that was San Diego's first game since December of last year, since December 31st. That's how long San Diego's men's basketball team hadn't played. So the fact that they went pretty much 16 days or 17 days without basketball is quite amazing. And the fact that they're still here is also amazing as well. So good to have you back, San Diego. I'm sorry your game was a rude awakening, but you're still awesome. As for the men's basketball games regarding the West Coast Conference from last Saturday, Loyola Marymount lost to Pacific 58-49. Pepperdine beat Portland 80-65. And Santa Clara and San Diego was canceled and moved to Sunday, in which San Diego lost. And then last Friday there were no West Coast Conference games. And then last Thursday, I don't know if I ever talked about it, but last Thursday Gonzaga stomped on Pepperdine 95-70, and that was that. Poor Pepperdine. So there's that right there. So as for the standings in the West Coast Conference, I'll just go over all the standings. I know we have only 3 teams from Southern California, but I'll just go over all the standings. So in the West Coast Conference, we have Gonzaga at 5-0, BYU at 3-1, Pepperdine at 2-1, Pacific at 2-1, San Francisco at 4-3, LMU or Loyola Marymount at 2-2, Santa Clara at 2-2, St. Mary's at 1-3, San Diego at 0-3, and Portland at 0-5. In terms of overall records, Gonzaga is still 14-0, the number 1 team in the nation. BYU is 12-3. Pepperdine is 6-6, Pacific is 5-2, San Francisco is 10-7, Loyola Marymount is 7-5, Santa Clara is 8-4, St. Mary's is 10-5, San Diego is 1-6, and Portland is 6-8. And that is all for the West Coast Conference on the men's side. So now let's go over to the women's side of the West Coast Conference, and let's just recap everything that's gone on. There are no games tonight in terms of the West Coast Conference. Last night we had Pepperdine getting stomped on by St. Mary's 79-61. Loyola Marymount beat Pacific 81-71. San Diego Gonzaga was postponed, unfortunately, and we hope that game gets made up somehow, some way. So this past Saturday, we had Loyola Marymount edging Pepperdine 53-50 in the battle of the freeway battle. I forget what the name of the Pepperdine Loyola Marymount rivalry is, but it's like the PCH battle. I'm not so sure, and I will do my homework and know what the name of that rivalry is. Either way, I will find out the name of the Loyola Marymount Pepperdine rivalry. And was that for last Saturday, for the West Coast Conference games last Saturday. In terms of last Thursday, we had Pacific and San Diego postponed, unfortunately, because of the COVID outbreak involving the San Diego program. So let's go to the standings to see where everyone's at. Then I'll let you all go and get you ready for the next show coming up. So in terms of the West Coast Conference, Gonzaga is undefeated at 7-0 in conference play. BYU is 4-1. Portland is 4-2. San Diego is 2-1. Santa Clara is 4-3. Loyola Marymount is 4-3. Pacific is 2-3. San Francisco is 1-6. St. Mary's is 1-6. And poor Pepperdine, the only team that doesn't have a West Coast Conference win, is at 0-4. In terms of overall standings, we have Gonzaga at 12-2, BYU at 8-2, Portland at 7-5, San Diego at 5-3, Santa Clara at 8-5, Loyola Marymount at 5-7, Pacific at 4-4, San Francisco at 5-8, St. Mary's at 3-10, and Pepperdine at 3-5. And that is pretty much that for the West Coast Conference and its basketball scores on the men's and women's side. And I believe that is going to do it for everything for this entire show. I got through everything. I know I didn't really talk a whole lot about the MLS draft, but I'll get into a more in-depth analysis of which SoCal product got drafted by which team next week, and then I'll see what the news is going on for there, and then I'll also talk about the men's and women's water polo, or the men's water polo scores for next week, and then I'll also talk about all the other scores, excluding volleyball. That means you set point. You're not going to get talked about until Tuesday. We've talked about this, and we're not going to let you out until Tuesday. So, anyway, I'm just being silly at this point. So, coming up next on IE Sports Radio, we have the sports couple perspective with Larry B and his lovely girlfriend, Cecilia. They will be talking about the movie Concussion, and they will also be talking a whole lot about when when do rules make sports uncompetitive and inconsistent officiating. And like I said, their movie of the week is Concussion, which was actually brought up a whole lot. And I also want to give a shout to Larry B, because he actually watched the Perfect Season, or which is a volleyball movie, which is absolutely amazing. I haven't even seen that. Oops. Either way, I do plan to see that movie, and I definitely and highly recommend checking out the sports couple perspective with Larry B and Cecilia. And also, we had earlier today, we had the State of Ohio Sports with Andrew Hagenbaugh. And like I said, actually tomorrow, for all you early birds, on IE Sports Radio, we have a new show going on, and it's called High Octane Sports, and that's going to be hosted by, and that's actually a show from, that's actually a show regarding Indiana sports, and that's going to be hosted by Justin Lahr, I think his name is pronounced. But it's definitely a great show to watch. It's gonna, I'm obviously going to have a tough time. It's called High Octane Entertainment. I'm sorry. So yeah, High Octane Entertainment with Justin Lahr, spelled L-A-H-R, and that is going to go on at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So set your alarms, because I know I am, and honestly, I'm not the best early bird, but I'm definitely going to be checking out the show just because I want to see him talk maybe he'll talk some Indiana volleyball, so who knows. And you can definitely check out all of IE Sports Radio's other shows on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TuneIn, SoundCloud, you name it. Spotify, you name it. And then you can also check out IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. Keep following them, as they will be providing some up-to-date news and possible guest alerts. You could also go to iSportsRadio.com and pick up some IE Sports Radio gear. And you could also follow them and like them on Facebook. And you could also subscribe to them on YouTube. And please also try to leave a 5-star review for for iSports Radio on Apple Podcasts, because it definitely helps them out. And also, if you are interested in being a sponsor, or if you are interested in being promoting or cross-promoting with iSports Radio, definitely let Larry B, the founder of iSports Radio, know. And we actually have a Fiverr account, and I definitely would recommend cross-promoting or being a sponsor for iSports Radio, and it would be great for not only your company or your organization, but it would also be great for us, because when it comes to our business and your podcast and all that, we will do everything we can to expand your business and help build your craft and promote your craft. So definitely check out our sponsorship packages on Ko-Fi.com and on Fiverr. And if you have any questions, definitely talk to the man, the myth, the legend, Larry B. You can follow him on Twitter at the THEELB_53 on Twitter. And you can follow me on Twitter at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Twitter at SoCal Show IESR. And you definitely don't want to miss what's coming up next. So, without any further delay, that is going to do it for this entire show. I definitely recommend you continuing your support of iSports Radio, and I definitely thank you all for tuning in to tonight's show, and I definitely thank you all for listening live or on the replay. And without any further delay, it's time to get on out of here, because in about 24 more minutes, we have another show going live. Once again, thank you all for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I definitely appreciate it. I definitely appreciate you all tuning in for the past 29 episodes. Next week is episode 30. I don't know why I'm going to get promoted that, but I guess 30 is the episode. And again, definitely continue to be a great person. Have yourself a great week. Enjoy the sports. NFL, definitely enjoy everything that's going on, and just overall be a good person. And if you're ever having a tough time, just know that a friend of mine once told me 2 things: stay positive and push forward. Have yourself a great rest of the night, and remember, SoCal is for show. Peace to you.